In 2019, an experiment was started in regenerative higher education. It set out to connect the Mission Impact Minor, offered by the Industrial Design and Engineering Program and Center of Expertise Mission Zero at The Hague University of Applied Sciences, to connect with local transitional challenges, like moving from a linear to a circular economy. This experiment ran through 2022 and included students from more than 12 different educational programs. The course was set out to learn more about how to do regenerative education.
By participating in Mission Impact, I learned, I learned quite a lot.
Personally, I would describe it as learning about healing, growth, and how, despite all the things that humans do to the planet, that it can always grow back again.
By the first conversation, I got to feel like this is a safe place. This is a place for students to really explore new knowledge, explore new ideas.
Sometimes people think that because it's only themselves that they're not making a difference, but they actually do make a difference, even if it's just one person or that person feels like it's not too many people and it's not enough. It's always enough if you're beginning with yourself. And you can always encourage other people around you to do it as well.
And in Mission Impact, we were always together. And there was kindness, there was a safe space for people to share, but also to fail, to learn, to experiment, to find themselves. So it was really a journey. It was a transformative journey that I think most of us didn't really understood at first and didn't really know what they were signing up for. But I could see by the end of the minor that all of us were happy that we did it.
The name Mission Impact really resonated with me. It's like, I can make an impact. So that was a powerful title or name of the minor.
In the minor, they worked with the Binkhorst area, a former industrial space within The Hague that is being redeveloped towards a circular creative hub. This is causing a lot of friction between old and new actors, between what is and what could be. They also worked in the Greenport, the agro-food and horticulture powerhouse between Rotterdam and The Hague that is one of the most productive and agriculturally intensified places in the world. The sector is facing large challenges towards embracing a circular and energy-positive future. The minor worked with these local ecosystems because the grand challenges of our time require changes across society. A regional approach allows the opportunity to connect with something that is tangible but also very complex. This allows education to be more of a community-based project instead of something that occurs in an ivory tower.
What I think can be learned from Mission Impact for other forms of education is that one thing that Mission Impact really tried to do is give its students freedom to choose their own research methodologies and really also encourage them to step out of the traditional, 5 interviews, analyze it and do this, but also kind of working with action research, creative research methods, and so on. And one of the things that we found out is that, or I observed quite a lot, was that giving the space for students to do this doesn't necessarily entail that they know how to do this. And actually, students need much more broader understanding of how research works, perhaps the history of how we validate and value knowledge within kind of these Western epistemologies, how that forms into research practices now, why they've been taught the way that they've been taught, in order for them to be able to step out of it?
I believe that education should not be only about the mind. In Schumacher College, we say that it's about the mind, the heart, and the hand, and that you have to train them all together.
And keep it at a lower level, but always teaching them how to confront certain situations, either by themselves or with their peers. They can always learn how to plant a tree or take better care of nature and animals and find ways of not polluting or saving energy. Those things you can always teach young kid and always apply in any kind of circumstances.
The classroom provides, like, of course, a great potential to explore these ideas, not only on the rational and intellectual side, but also like how one experiences it. And so that's also why I believe there's a great importance in the teachers kind of doing that self-work, so to speak, because, you know, only to the extent in which they are able to recognize, say, microaggressions and biases, insecurities, and also hold space and facilitate more heavier emotions like guilt and shame within the classroom, only to the extent that they can kind of like do that for themselves, like within their own lives, is the extent in which they can also facilitate that process within the school, within the classroom.
Navigating through those, it's also from the point of the teacher, it's also extremely hard. Where do you put the boundaries? How do you go through certain problems? How do you maintain the dynamics of the whole minor if there is no power structure? And how do you give freedom but you don't bring chaos? I think this is such a fine balance, and I recognize that it was extremely well done in mission impact.
Yeah, I think that regeneration also means self-growth, and that you can apply in your future life, and you can go for things that maybe you didn't dare to before or thought that you wouldn't get. I feel like now we are getting better at it.
But of course, like, one of the challenges was not to, how do you say, over promote it, in the sense of like trying to say like, oh yeah, we're doing good here, you know? And because one of the main things is that like we want students to connect to systemic challenges on their own. For me, it happened to be through education. For someone else, it might be through dance, or for another person through, I don't know, the housing crisis or something.
It's our planet. It's not just mine. It's for everyone. We all play a part in it and in taking care of it, but also in learning about it. There's so many things that we haven't learned. Sometimes having a science class is not enough because there's so much more to it.
Through education, you can achieve the most radical changes, and our world is in a need for a radical change in order to achieve a better regenerative future.
And you can always keep learning. There's always new things to learn. You can always get updated with what's happening in the world and what you can do about it. You never stop learning.
For educators, working regeneratively requires a different embodied role. One that goes towards standing in a community-based project where you are a co-learner with students and professionals who are all facing a challenge and nobody knows where they are going or how they're going to go there. The regenerative approach allows one to step into this discomfort in service of life and place.
It really all started just with, well, what all good design starts with, a doubt, right? Something running into a system that doesn't really work or it doesn't feel correct. And in my sense, or in my case, that was, I didn't really understand why we asked students to write a thesis. by themselves within their discipline. Because first I was just wondering, like, what is a discipline? But then afterwards, like, well, nobody works by themselves in the real world, so why do we do it in education?
I really think education is key in how we are going into the future. And what I see also from my own children, the way education is given doesn't fit anymore in today's society, and everyone is struggling with that. So you can. I don't believe in big changes in now we have to go left and then we go right, etc. But the regenerative way. Um, uh, Let me say, until Bas mentioned it that way, I didn't realize that it was a kind of way how to change education.
What I hope for education to become, and what I really, I'm working on that it can become a place where students have more say in what they learn, why they learn, how they learn, and how they want to be assessed on their learning.
So I proposed something like a graduation lab where we would be able to get like multiple students from different programs together to do one big challenge, something that society needs or that the planet needs, and to graduate on that. And interestingly, when we started doing that, we first talked with a lot of people inside the organization, and they were all like, "Oh my God, that's a great idea, let's do it." And then once we actually went from like, okay, so this is the concept, let's put it into action, they were like, well, yeah, but we cannot do that because the regulations wouldn't allow it, because you need to graduate by yourself. Well, for example, at Wageningen University, also in the country, you can even get a PhD with 2 or 3 people at the same time. So those arguments didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
I think, or I feel that it is crucial that students have more say in what and why and how they learn, because society is changing very rapidly, and the consequences of a particular way of living the past decades are becoming more and more visible and influential, especially for the generation of my students. And I see it as their basic human right to have a say about where the future is going. And one of the places where that say about the future should take place is education.
I think my biggest aspiration for regenerative higher education is to bridge the gap between personal transformation or like finding your own path in life and societal transformation and community building.
It's not a job you do, it is separate from who you are, but it's kind of mingled.
I always like to think, anything that has been designed at some point can be redesigned.
Because copying is that what the world doesn't need anymore, because it's so easy to copy these days. You have to come with something unique.
So the shift that happened for me was a shift from focusing on external transitions towards using external transitions as a rich place of learning for internal transformations. So to be able to help prepare students, young people and communities to navigate uncertain futures filled with transitions, to make sure that we're able to plant the seeds of change, so to say, so that anyone who has been touched by one of these courses will, for the rest of their lives, contribute to making the world a better place.
I do it, I practice it in my classes, and to allow my regenerative approach to regenerate the teaching practices of my colleagues is by co-teaching with others. And now one of a colleague, she shared with me this week, I'm gonna do this with another group of students. and that colleagues hear that I do this, or they hear it from students, and they sort of inspire each other. So I hope that my classes can, bring something to life that is a stone in the pond that finds its own way to inspire others.
But I think the most interesting thing for me is learning from other people.
I very firmly believe that education can never be a singular act. It's always something that has to happen in a community, with a community, and through a community. So I always say we.
So there are all these students that enter the school with their own paths through the world, with their own biographies, their own stories, their own sometimes traumas, passions, everything going on. And then there's this world of professions and of societal processes going on. And inevitably there's a big conversation between those two. That's the story of everyone's life. And we as people in higher education have the responsibility to sort of create a pedagogical environment for that conversation to become a fruitful one.
Allow education as a process, so not as an institution, but as a process. And maybe that's not just higher education, but education in general, to be in service of whole society again, instead of only serving the economy.
We're talking about that really deep, subjective or subjectification, personal dimension of sustainability that is often undervalued. Like, who are you becoming? Why are you here? What matters to you? You know, existential challenges and questions.
Maybe the most difficult part of being a regenerative educator for me is that I have to let go of the idea that I can fully prepare for a class. I quite liked the way when I came in how you told me that you like the story to emerge from the interviews rather than that you think about it all in advance. And I experience regenerative teaching the same way.
Many times throughout this journey, I have questioned whether I was capable at that moment of letting go of who I was as an educator to allow who I was becoming to take place. And that takes a tremendous amount of courage. And if there's one thing that I could wish or gift to everyone, would be, take those steps, right? Try it out, and you may be surprised of who you are capable of becoming. And I think that everyone that's connected to you will thank you in the end.
I need to navigate, and that's constant learning between, on the one hand, that controllability and accountability aspired system, and that's really hard work. And my own tendency to make sure that everything is going well. And I know that my students are very well capable of organizing their things.
This documentary shows that even within the structures of the existing educational systems, change is possible. More regenerative forms of educating can already emerge. Hopefully, we can take steps towards more regenerative forms of educating together.
Learning, I think, is really time for everybody to see and learn that there are other ways of educating than the classroom-based jumping hoops type of education we had for the past decade.
If we did this, it can encourage other people to do it as well.
Fundamentally, what not necessarily mission impact, but a course like it is about strengthening, equipping, transforming the people that join for the rest of their lives, and particularly in the context of very difficult challenges.
It has been a life-changing experience for me, and I think it has made me personally more self-confident about feeling confident about my students.
It also gave me this like empowerment to also not go for like the typical things, become more original, more creative, thinking outside the box. A lot of it I got from Mission Zero, so I feel like Mission Zero really gave me a lot of strength so that I could make some choices in my life that are very important. Pursuing my dreams and what I like the most or what I'm really passionate about.
I think for me, Mission Impact was one of the best decisions I've made in the past 4 years.
While this journey started in 2019, it is not yet finished. The ripples of learnings continue to catalyze systemic change. Our alumni have spread their wings and the lessons we learned are carried with us. More and more educators are unleashing their educations and their own regenerative potential. Like the philosopher of education Gerd Pista says, education is a thoroughly practical art, and educational sciences, at their best, ought to inform the artistry of others. We hope that this work may inform your regenerative artistry.
With the choices we're making now, right, will we be able to look ourselves in the mirror in 20 or 30 years and be proud of who we're seeing? Not be able to live with who we're seeing, but to be actively proud.